Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome. So last week, the PU's monthly report for June was released, so today I would like to break that down. As always, a huge thank you to my patrons and channel members. Thank you so much for the support. And if you do enjoy my content, please consider subscribing and helping the channel to grow. So kicking off with AI content, the team was heavily involved in prepping for a 4-day mocap session with some of the recorded assets already delivered and currently being made functional for use in game. We don't know what these mocap sessions are for though, unfortunately, as it doesn't specify. They also extended the patron activities to handle the new shops they're working on and analyse the usables that will be required to populate the PU outposts, plus the security guard and vendor activities and their related usable setups were finished. Talking of the security guards, they became the primary use case for dynamic conversations, with the developers setting up 2 conversations that can randomly be selected by a civilian approaching the guard. They can either report a crime or ask for directions. They also completed a pass of the security guard's wild lines and began using the reputation system to influence the behavior logic flow. It will be very interesting to see these NPCs just making their way around and interacting with each other. Also, if they are able to report crimes, it's better to probably use a back alley on ArtCorp, I think. The vendor behavior was expanded to support NPCs collecting combinations of food and drink items from different usable shops and delivering them to the player as a single order, with the team saying, "To make serving food more tactile and realistic, we have identified food grip types for the new items, and we are working with the props team to package the food when served. So no more hot dogs placed directly on the dirty counters." Anyway, moving on to AI features. For spaceship combat, the team worked on tech to allow AI to identify and target subcomponents of other ships, so engines or weapons, etc. This will allow for a greater range of tactics to be selected, for example, taking out the engines of a ship so it can't pursue them and then firing at it from afar. Basically, the AI retrieve the same type of information from the subcomponent as it does from the whole spaceship, including the amount of damage dealt, which will allow the team to maybe prioritize attacking the weapons which are causing the most damage. Now, this new ability means some of the existing combat behaviors need to be modified, such as the orbital strafe, to consider the side of the ship that the targeted subcomponent is on. Now, the team also implemented the chatty and quiet traits used in the dogfighting behaviors that control how often the AI communicate in combat. For human AI, they worked on the tech and animation to control how an NPC reacts to stimuli, such as gunshots and seeing or hearing an enemy when interacting with a usable. Now, this is used to bridge the gap between the AI's usable and reaction, while exiting the usable and getting the AI back to the nav mesh. For example, if it spots an enemy player, it might need to reach for a weapon to begin fighting, conveying its level of reaction to the player and getting into the combat position. Now, I feel this is something that's quite often overlooked in games. Having the NPC notice the player and then react accordingly while it is interacting with something else, that is going to be a nice touch. Usually you just get a blank stare and a real casual movement as the NPC exits the usable, to then suddenly kick in and be all crazed and firing at you. So any subtleties here I think will be well appreciated. Now, the team produced a prototype for the utility behavior that allows AI agents to transfer cargo crates between areas. NPCs will identify loose crates, pick them up, and then take them to an area and stack them. Then the next AI can then take that stacked crate and transfer them to another area as desired. The team also have an eye on how this will integrate with the vehicular cargo storage, and I do wonder if this is being developed for when the cargo refactor is done, so that when we go to a hangar or we land and request cargo loading and unloading, which will have a time associated with it, NPCs can come along and kind of give the impression that they are unloading or loading up your ship. Now, the first version of unmanned missile turret behavior was implemented. This proved that all the work done for spaceships is easily portable to multiple entities and will correctly handle any vehicle that wants to shoot missiles to target. I do wonder if this is to use missile turret defenses, maybe for ground defenses in the future. That would be kind of cool. Now, moving on to AI tech, the team started this month working on planetary navigation, improving the navigation mesh tiles to allow for a spherical surface representation of the mesh. They also added functionality to allow NPCs to correctly move along paths defined by the designers, giving a much more robust solution to allow characters to loop over open or closed paths of different shapes, restarting from the beginning where necessary. Now this stuff is huge, as the navigation mesh is what will allow CIG to get NPCs naturally moving around on the surface of the planets. Hearing that they are now just improving the navigation mesh means that it's working, and it's only a matter of time until it is good enough to be implemented for us. Obviously, NPCs planetside and capable of moving around on the surface means so much for even what we have now. NPC bounties, for example, could transition from ship to ground and vice versa. Or maybe the NPC bounties can actually start following you planetside. Populations can exist planetside beyond the cities, like villages and settlements, with NPCs and AI wandering around, going about their business. Not to mention, it will be needed for fauna, creatures and animals that make their way around the surface, like the boreal stalker. So some huge information there, that it's not just creating this navigation mesh, but they are now improving it. So work on 3D NPC navigation in EVA continued, and also the rules to allow smaller ships to try and avoid larger ones, and allow larger ships to not care so much about avoiding smaller ones. Again, NPCs capable of EVAing and interacting with usables like airlocks and so forth means NPCs will soon be capable of boarding our ships. Now the first pass was finished to allow NPCs to control and move trolleys similarly to how the player does. Currently they are extending the movement system, as the trolleys are obviously forced based, so they need force to move them, and this will allow NPCs to decide how much force to apply to maintain desired momentum. And then for the subsumption editor, they continued to embed the tool into the game engine, with focus on allowing designers to have a better global view of the logic for each mission, which should reduce the mental effort needed to follow the logic between different graphs. So some great work there for AI. Let's move on to animation. So the animation team created a rough space whale loop for AI to help design to determine what else they might need in terms of gameplay. It is going to be crazy when we actually get to see these space whales in game. They also worked on vendor sets like cowering assets to enable civilians to run and hide behind cover, plus janitor and arcade machines and medical revival gameplay. The facial animation team developed animations for emotes, drinking and eating, and various other systemic AI features, plus animations for the salvaging tool was created. Can't wait to see that in action. So moving on to the character art team, they continue developing 3 armor sets, which will also receive variants for various events and programs. Not sure what these are or how they work. They also supported setting up a system for players to equip and unequip backpacks, with new backpacks being added to the PU ready for 3.15, so the September patch. The team also worked on holographic props for all of their assets for the physical inventory UI. And finally, time was spent working on event-themed items, creating additional concepts for the Pyro system, and they explored possible gameplay interactions with the space whale creature. So some really exciting things coming along there. The event, I imagine they're talking about Ninetales, but it is going to be great when we get these backpacks. I can't wait to see what's available. So next up we have the environmental art team. The Montreal team worked to finish the remaining hospital locations, with the Space Clinics, Grimhex Clinic and Area 18's hospital now white box complete. They then moved on to the grey box phase, defining the various modules in more detail and properly showing the art intentions. On the design side, the team began using derelict pieces of spaceships to create puzzles, which will be populated with loot to encourage exploration and create pockets of new gameplay around Stanton. Their initial goal is to produce 24 derelict puzzles, so 12 planetside and 12 in space. Really love this idea, creating more points of interest and reason to search these derelicts beyond just finding the black box and then leaving. Plus, looting is a fundamental aspect of any MMO, and I do believe that looting tier 0, the work for that on the progress tracker finishes around July. Not to say it's going to be in 3.15, but it certainly sounds like it will be. Finally, the team looked into defining building interior gameplay, so creating a prototype layout and looking into adding proper missions to it. They're currently defining how this layout will fit into the procedural location creation tool, currently in development by the tool teams. So yet another point of interest addition for the planets, but what's cool about this one is that it is being included into this procedural system, which means they will be able to create these points of interest and interior missions quickly without the artists having to spend so much time to define it and create it. Now, the landing zone modular team took the colonialism outposts through the final art phase before moving on to the second set, which introduces more variation and additional themes. It's really feeling like these planets and moons are going to begin growing in diversity with all the work that they're doing on them here. These colonialism outposts are just one design set. They will build so many more of varying styles for all the other planets and locations and moons. But obviously getting these colonialism outposts in the game are the first step, and I can't wait to see them. Now, on to ship art. The team continued moving the two Crusader Ares variants through the pipeline. They are aiming to move into final art stage in the coming weeks for delivery in Q4. White box for the Drake Vulture began alongside a new variant of a popular ship to be announced later in the year. So firstly, yay for the Vulture. I am very happy that we will now begin to see the Vulture on shows like Inside Star Citizen, but also we might get to see if they have made any updates to the Drake style guide, as we haven't really had a recent Drake ship with an interior release. I think the Cutlass Blue was the last one, which was a little while ago, so it'll be very interesting to see what has changed there. But more importantly, what is this new variant of a popular ship? Now, my first guess was a potential Starfarer refinery, which was mentioned by Dan Truffin on a recent Star Citizen Live. However, would you class the Starfarer as a popular ship? I think it would have been when it was sold, but not so much anymore, so I'm not sure what this could be. Do let me know what you think it could be in the comments below. The UK ship team completed the final art and lighting pass for an as yet unannounced ship, after which they moved on to the level of detail process and exterior damage setup. Again, let me know what you think this could be in the comments. Could it be the 400i, the Argo Raft? Potentially. Is there any more? Most likely. With the Aegis Redeemer's exterior completed, the team moved on to the interior, completing the grey box phase ready for review in early July. The gold standard work continued for the Sabre and the Retaliator. The exterior lighting pass was done for the Sabre, while the Retaliator received reworked light and door controls throughout the ship. Finally, the team is getting the A2 Hercules ready for release, which involved adding a kitchenette for the crew and 2 large bomb bays to the cargo hold. I do wonder if, while they're adding this kitchenette for the A2, if they will add one for the M2 as well, as I think they did say they will be putting one in there. Not a full kitchen like the C2, but a little kitchenette area to allow the crew to eat. Anyway, next up we have the weapon art team. They continued with the mining gadget, taking this asset through to level of detail 0 complete and updating the rigging before passing it to animation. 2 subscriber weapon paints were finished and readied for release alongside a new knife for a future PU release. The animation passes for both the Greycat tractor beam and salvaging tool began, with iterations on their rigs being completed. And the team also worked on 2 new size 7 bearing ship weapons, 1 ballistic and 1 energy, both for an upcoming ship release. I'm assuming this is the Ares Starfighters. Now, the audio team worked on the hospital locations and medical gameplay in general, adding effects to the Cure Life medical tool and dialogue that makes the player sound injured and relieved when healed. Now, I do think having involuntary audible cues for players when they are injured is quite important, and this is for 2 reasons. Number 1, if you're a medic in game, having varying audio cues for the various injuries and ailments will help you to identify and diagnose that issue better, so adding a little bit more skill, like an audible skill to it. But secondly, it would also encourage the player to heal or take care of themselves. For example, if you plan to do something that requires sneaking around and stealthing around in FPS, for example, imagine sneaking around and your character is making noises because you didn't take care of an injury. I might be alone on that one, but I think that would be cool. And finally, audio also supported UI features on the missile operator mode and capacitor gameplay to make dogfighting gameplay smoother. I will say audio feedback is very important while dogfighting, so any improvements on that are welcome. Next up, we have character and weapon features. The team continued their work on the active status, this time adding different ways the recently completed statuses affect the player. For example, if the character's blood drug level, or BDL, becomes too high, they'll utilize a specific intoxication locomotion set and will experience various on-screen effects as well. Now, this will also affect the player's controls while on foot or piloting a vehicle by adding degrees of randomness, similar, I guess, to what they do in GTA when you're driving a car and you're drunk. Now, these effects do scale with the blood drug level, and there are several ways to increase them. For example, you could visit a bar and overindulge in alcohol, or they can overuse injury medication within a short period of time. It's going to be so much fun. Another recent addition is the down state. Basically, unless a player receives significant damage when hit, they will fall over similarly to getting knocked out and be in a state where they're unconscious and slowly dying. However, a teammate can resuscitate them if they arrive in time. Work also continues on different optimization initiatives, including better data encapsulation of the lower level animation update logic. Also, a while ago, the team began exploring component update frequencies as an option to reduce the cost of characters the further away they are. A number of core actor components have now implemented this, and testing is in the final stages. The team are actually hoping to use the PTU to get more live-like tests of a cut-down version of the performance improvements, with hopes of shipping them in a future release. It is very interesting that there is so much they are doing to optimize Star Citizen, even now in an alpha, which is a great sign for things to come. Now, the gameplay features team continued to work on the player asset manager, with the baseline functionality implemented in May. They began adding further features to the app, such as sorting and filtering, and they also worked with the narrative team to name the app, with the final version unfortunately being Knickknacks, which does sound like a very terrible failed Etsy shop. Now the UI designers created a logo and general branding, and they are currently wrapping up leftover tasks, preparing Knickknacks for its release in Q3. Damn it, I wish they had a better name than that. The team also further developed the Ninetales lockdown, testing and balancing before its release in 3.14. The cargo refactor has been expanded to include resource container work, while the design for persistent hangars and a selling refactor began. So much going on there. All three features are huge in my book. Resource containers are basically what the player can put their own things into. So if you have 4 weapons, you can load them into your own box, and then that will be detected by the cargo refactor. The UK team focused on features for 3.15 and 3.16, including loot generation, ensuring all setups are in place so that the boxes with the loot are distributed with random valuable items. Yes, please. They also began developing atmospheric depth damage for gas giants, and once complete, as we know, the pressures within gas giants will damage players' ships as they attempt to reach the core. Ship-to-ship refueling began its production phase, and when live, we will be able to provide fuel to other people in exchange for credits. Very much looking forward to that one. Now, for vehicle features, the team are ramping up work on the development of jump points, with a large portion of the team moving to build them out. Although this feature hasn't had significant development time yet, the progress is increasing rapidly as focus switches and more devs begin working on it. In fact, I think I just saw someone on Twitter announcing that they are now working for CIG specifically on jump points, which is cool. I do wonder though if this Hurston Microtech jump point is to test jump points, or whether it's to test the Aran Halo and the way through the asteroid belt. Either way though, I would expect that we will get to see this feature develop as it does. Finally, they improved the docking feature to allow players to refuel, repair and restock while docked at a station. For the narrative team, development of Pyro continued, with them providing write-ups to the art and design teams to help further flesh out the system. Time was also spent developing additional AI behavior flows and scripts to create more realistic interactions in the future, and narrative's direction was provided to further enhance the lore of the upcoming medical and hacking gameplay. The props team focused on dressing props for Orison and the high-tech hospitals, plus work continued on the upcoming colonialism outposts, which the team say was a welcome break from the clean high-tech assets they've been doing, allowing them to push the materials to hit the mark for the new colonialism art style. The Systemic Services and Tools team are geared up for the next iteration of the Economy and AI simulation, which has improved fidelity and interaction with the game itself and is easier to manage via new integrated tools. Very excited to hear that this is being expanded. Hopefully this next iteration we will be able to see some of it integrated into the game maybe. It doesn't feel like it's that far off, and if it can come in sooner than later, then maybe it can help out some of these commodity traders. Like myself, in fact. I did dabble in that and it is quite difficult right now. The team also continued the foundational work for various services such as the AI Info Service and the Air Traffic Controller Service. They are currently working towards applying tech created for direct connections to other services to help alleviate bottlenecks on the back end. Sounds like a great plan. Now, Tech Animation's R&D into streamlining the facial scan and scan creation pipelines was completed, with the outcome saving the art teams significant man hours over the coming years. This has formed the cornerstone in Tech Animation's own facial rig building process and will ultimately expedite the entire facial pipeline. Now, the Turbulent team updated the launcher with quality of life fixes and an epilepsy warning before launch was added. I'm surprised they haven't had that in already. The game services team continued to focus on the server meshing project alongside working on service improvements and documentation. And on the back end, the team focused on performance improvements, ensuring that the number of requests can exponentially grow with the size of the community. Now, the UI teams worked on healing gameplay, specifically creating the medical UI screens used for healing and other functionality in the hospitals. Next, they further developed the core tech for the new star map and connected it to the radar system, with them currently focusing on the back-end code that connects AR markers, the star map, interior map, and radar system. In-game functionality will come next, followed by UI in the future. I am so happy to hear that they are progressing with this new star map, although it is still likely a little way off. They did say it's very complicated and will take some time. Knowing it's coming is making me very happy, and also hearing that they are not just redoing this star map, but they're also connecting it to interior maps and radars and stuff means it will be all integrated and work much better when we get the new one. The team is also thinking about the next iteration of the Mobiglass, concepting potential layouts and animations for the overall feel of the system, future vehicle HUD concepts, and a variety of logos for use in the environments and UI were developed too. Now, the vehicle tech team made improvements to doors, which involved improving player interactions with door panels and airlocks and solving issues with the transition between the atmosphere and the vacuum of space. And finally, we have the visual effects team. They spoke about the new particle lighting model, which made its debut with 3.14, and this allows a much better quality of lighting for particles, but also allows them to create their effects in a much more consistent way without worrying that different environment lighting will cause an effect to not work as well. The team also continued their progress of fleshing out the destruction pipeline, focusing on a Theatres of War map containing a huge explosion sequence, and finally improvements were made to the new vehicle radar ping effects. So quite a big monthly report this month. Some great stuff being spoken about there. This year we are going to see some really good improvements and updates to things coming down the line. There is so much great work going on that will certainly help to shape Star Citizen into more of what it's intending to be. But with that said, that is this month's monthly report. If you do enjoy my content, do consider subscribing and hit that like button if you don't mind. It does the channel a big favour. Also tick the bell if you would like to be notified when my videos go live. We do discuss this kind of stuff and I am trying to play 3.14. Unfortunately, I'm having a bug where I can't select my spawn location, so I'm not able to get in. But hopefully today we will resolve that and we can get in and start playing it over on twitch.tv/supermacbrothers. Link is in the description below. Again, massive thank you to my patrons and channel members for all their support. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.